Now all of the summer anime are now starting to kind of roll down. They're starting to finish. Some of those shows that started a little bit earlier on, and those shows that are cutting, cut a little bit short because they're only doing 11 episodes this season, are all winding down and finishing. So let's talk about Dandadan Season 2, which was a great time and is basically just a continuation of Dandadan Season 1. And what I mean by that is basically, yes, obviously it's continuing the story, but also we're not getting any sort of recap of previous events from Season 1. So I do hope you remember, because there are some references that are going to come up, some events that are going to be alluded to later on. But either way, it's still basically the quality is still very much the same, if not heightened a little bit more in terms of the music. The music is really good this season. The audio visual cues, the sound effects, they're all bloody excellent. The visual aesthetic still remains to this point. The animation style is, like I said, incredible. The voice acting for all of the characters across the board, it's very hard to pick out any characters that had particularly poor voice acting. I kind of am just, absolutely gushing about this show. That being said, though, a little bit of a downside, I think, from my side is that I'm not a fan of the ending theme. I actually don't really like it that much, because the opening theme for the first couple of episodes I wasn't feeling it, and then from the third episode onwards I was like, oh, I see what they're doing and I absolutely love it. The sort of style of like seeing things from Okuno's point of view, starting off with the forest that he was originally in at the beginning of the entire series, and taking on this almost style of Blair Witch perspective, because you know how everything's recorded on a camcorder. It's just not recorded from a camcorder. Instead, it's almost taken from the memory that Okaru has, essentially, and kind of presented in the opening theme. So while I dislike the ending theme, and I also don't like the animation style of the ending theme, I do think that the opening theme is so much better than the ending theme. In every sense of the word. I think that if I were to pick a soundtrack, a song that's part of the soundtrack that's particularly not really up my alley, it would certainly be the ending theme. I think that, like, the theme song for certain characters, like the evil eye, the Jashin that takes over Gigi's body at the beginning of the season, I think he had actually had a pretty solid theme song. Initially I wasn't feeling it, like I said, similar to the opening theme, but hey, eventually it really did kind of, drill it sort of fingers into my brain, and now I'm like, yes, this is actually a pretty fun theme to have, because it almost has like the sort of supernatural feel to it, to the music itself for that particular theme, but it has sort of like this almost slight pop, slight jazz to it. I feel like I'm getting like way too into the details of like a very specific theme that feels like it was new in this season, because I don't remember it from season 1, so I could be kind of out of it at the same time. That being said, I think we can easily say that this season is split into two parts. The first part is basically one series of events involving a family that sacrifices people to a giant worm in the ground that protects us from volcanic eruptions and stuff like that. Anyway, I would rather you guys just kind of, actually watch the show, because it's actually really, really good. And usually I don't go into spoilers, but like even me explaining it, it really does feel kind of incredible as to how it kind of all came to be. And then the sort of like last bit, which really isn't even a second half so much as like the last few episodes, make up the meat of what the last part of the second season is, which is a kaiju ? It's very hard to go into any more detail without talking spoilers, so leave it at that. But there's a lot to look forward to. Like I said, a lot of the quality from season 1 still very much remains in season 2, in basically every single aspect. And in terms of things that I think are weak, it's just the ending theme I really do think is the weakest part of it. But also there's a bit of a rushed introduction for a character who may very well become a mainstay moving forward. At least that's how he's presented as. Who knows if he's actually going to be sticking around for longer, but basically what I'm talking about for people who have watched the show is that final character who, the chubby fella. Let's just call him that. The chubby fella that gets joined in. That being said, season 3 has also been announced, so that's something to look forward to. And I do hope that they, keep this quality going, because my god, Science Saru are just absolutely killing it with Dandadan at the moment. I think that this is an exceptional show. That being said though, as much as I really like Dandadan, and as much as I'm saying a lot of really positive things about it, on my anime list, I'm actually going to be putting this down at a 9 out of 10. And the only reason for that is because when I look at the shows this season, there were a lot of really strong shows and a lot of really strong competitors for sequel seasons of shows that I like. But there's one show in particular that is also a sequel season that only just recently finished, so I won't be making a video of it until a little bit later on. This season just did an exceptional job in every way, shape, or form. I absolutely loved that show so much that it feels weird to talk about Dandadan in a slightly lesser fashion, but honestly, I kind of preferred that show more than what Dandadan provided me here. So just purely from a comparative point of view, if I'm going to be giving that show a 10 out of 10 anyway, so because I think it deserves it, but I still need to watch that final episode to just seal the deal that this is actually the kind of show that I want. But so yeah, Dandadan, I'm definitely putting it down at a 9 out of 10 for me personally. I think that it is stronger than season 1. It might be a bit of a letdown to not have a recap section, since there's been a bit of time since the previous season, but also moving forward at this point, having a recap doesn't really matter, because unless you're going to give it some time between season 1 and 2, I don't know if you'd ever want to have that break before moving on to the next thing. So it's really just a weakness from watching it at a weekly perspective. That being said, those are kind of my thoughts on Dandadan Season 2. I thought that, again, it is an excellent time. I really do recommend it. And similar to Season 1, I do really recommend that. Season 1 was slightly weaker just because of the fact that it had to kind of lay the groundwork for what is going to be. And unfortunately, the foundational seasons aren't usually the most well received, just because it has some legwork to do before it even starts to get to that point. But with all of that being said though, let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments below. Did you like Dandadan Season 2 as much as I did? Did you like it more than me? Most likely that might be the case. But with all that being said though, share that all in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year. And with all that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.